The invitation didn't come with a logo. That was the first reason Leonid trusted it. No branding, no marketing language, no call to action. Just a short message in his inbox. I think you'd fit. Below it, a link. No explanation. No sender name he recognized. Leonid hovered over it longer than he should have. He wasn't reckless online. He knew how scams looked, how manipulation started. But this didn't ask for anything. No login, no payment, no promise. Just curiosity. The link opened a plain page, dark background, minimal text. Welcome to Hollow, a private discussion space for people who preferred thinking to noise. Membership by invitation only. No screenshots, no public presence, no algorithms. That last line stood out. No algorithms. It sounded almost nostalgic. Leonid scrolled. There were rules, but they were vague. Be honest, be thoughtful. Don't perform. No likes, no follower counts, no visible metrics, just conversations. Leonid joined. The onboarding was quiet. No welcome message, no tutorial, just access. Dozens of threads, long posts, slow replies. People wrote carefully, as if they expected to be read properly. Leonid felt something loosen in his chest. This was what the internet used to feel like. He posted nothing at first. He read. Discussions about work, relationships, meaning, not advice, reflections. Nobody rushed to reply. Nobody tried to win. When Leonid finally wrote his first comment, it was short. He expected nothing. But someone replied. Then another. The replies weren't agreement. They were engagement. People asking what he meant, what led him there, why that detail mattered. Leonid hadn't felt that in years. Days passed, then weeks. Hollow became part of his routine, not addictive, comfortable. He noticed something strange after a while. Some voices carried more weight, not because they spoke more, but because when they did, conversations shifted. Threads changed direction, topics deepened or ended. No one acknowledged it, but everyone seemed to sense it. Leonid clicked on one of those users. No profile picture, no bio, just a name. Anchor. That was it. Anchor rarely posted, but when they did, others slowed down. Leonid couldn't explain why. It wasn't authority. It was calibration. Anchor didn't argue. They reframed. A few days later, Leonid noticed a message in his inbox. Private, from Anchor. You tend to ask questions that destabilize threads, it said. Not wrong ones, just early ones. Leonid reread it. There was no accusation in the tone, no warning, just observation. I hope that's okay, the message continued. Hollow works best when conversations arrive at conclusions together. Leonid replied carefully. I thought that was the point. Anchor answered minutes later. It is. Timing matters. Leonid felt a flicker of discomfort, but he brushed it aside. Online spaces always had moderators. Someone had to keep things healthy. Still, the word stayed with him. Timing. Over the next few days, Leonid experimented without meaning to. When he posted cautiously, his threads flourished. When he challenged assumptions early, replies slowed. Not arguments. Silence. His posts weren't removed. He wasn't warned. They just didn't land. Then he noticed something else. New members joined occasionally. Some stayed, some vanished. No goodbye posts, no drama. Their accounts simply stopped appearing. Leonid searched for one he remembered. Nothing. As if the person had never been there. He asked about it in a thread. The reply came quickly. People leave, someone wrote. Hollow isn't for everyone. Anchor liked that reply. Leonid stared at the small icon beside it. The only reaction symbol Hollow had. A simple dot. Not approval. Acknowledgement. Leonid closed his laptop slowly, because for the first time since joining, a thought crossed his mind that made him uneasy. Hollow didn't feel like a platform. It felt like a room, and in rooms like that, silence was never empty. It was measured. Leonid stopped thinking of Hollow as a place where people talked. It was a place where people were observed, not overtly, not aggressively, carefully. He began noticing patterns he couldn't unsee. Threads that drifted too far from shared assumptions were gently redirected. Not shut down, reframed. A single comment would appear, often from Anchor or someone similar, and the tone would shift. Not because people agreed, because they adjusted. Leonid started saving posts locally. Nothing confidential, nothing dramatic. Just his own comments, copied before posting. He compared them to how they appeared after a few hours. Sometimes they were identical. Sometimes they weren't. Not edited, contextualized. Replies would paraphrase his point in softer language. Others would respond to that version instead. It felt like watching a shadow conversation form around his words. One night, Leonid tested something deliberately. He posted a question that challenged a core assumption Hollow seemed to share, about accountability. He phrased it politely, carefully, no accusation. The post went live. For an hour, nothing happened. Then a response appeared from a user named Field. It didn't argue. It didn't dismiss. It reframed the question entirely. By the time Leonid returned, the thread wasn't about accountability anymore. It was about patience. Leonid closed the tab, unsettled. The next morning he woke to a message. From Anchor. "You're mapping the room," it said. "That's understandable." Leonid stared at the words. "I don't follow," he typed back. "You're trying to see how ideas move here," Anchor replied. "That's a useful instinct. Just don't let it replace participation." Leonid paused. Replace participation with what? There was a delay this time, then distance. The word sat there, heavier than it should have. Leonid noticed changes after that. Not punishments, adjustments. Threads he used to see on the main page appeared later. Sometimes not at all. Replies to his comments took longer. Not always, just often enough to notice. He checked his settings. Nothing had changed. Hollow didn't show metrics, but Leonid began inferring them anyway. Which posts surfaced faster? Which voices were amplified indirectly? Which users seemed to vanish from conversations without leaving? He began to suspect that Hollow didn't remove people. It repositioned them. Leonid decided to look for someone who had vanished. A user named Irisfold. They had written thoughtfully. Often disagreed early, then stepped back. Leonid searched for their posts. Gone, not deleted, unindexed. As if the system had decided those conversations no longer mattered. Leonid asked about Irisfold in a private message to another member. The reply came quickly. They needed something different. Different from what? Leonid typed the question, then erased it. Because he was starting to understand. Hollow didn't eject Dissent. It absorbed it until it became background noise. That night, Leonid received another private message. Not from Anchor, from someone he didn't recognize. "No names here," it said. "But you're not wrong." Leonid's pulse quickened. "About what?" he typed. "About timing," the message replied. "And about memory." Leonid leaned closer to the screen. "What memory?" Another pause. Then, "Hollow doesn't forget what you say. It learns when you say it." Leonid read the line 3 times, because suddenly the space felt different. Not like a room, like a record. And records don't argue. They wait. Leonid didn't announce that he was leaving. He simply stopped logging in. No farewell post, no explanation. He told himself it was simple. Hollow wasn't a job. It wasn't a contract. Just a space. Spaces can be left. The first week felt fine. Strangely quiet, but fine. He noticed how often he reached for the site out of habit, then stopped himself. How many thoughts he had framed internally as if he were about to post them. That faded. What didn't fade was the sense of being indexed. Leonid dismissed it as paranoia, until things outside Hollow started shifting. A colleague mentioned an article Leonid remembered discussing, privately, on Hollow weeks earlier. A phrase from one of his old posts surfaced almost verbatim in a group chat he'd never shared it in. Coincidence, he told himself. The internet is small. Then an email arrived. Not from Hollow. From a newsletter he didn't remember subscribing to. The subject line caught his breath. Timing isn't neutral. Leonid opened it. The article wasn't addressed to him. It didn't mention Hollow. But the language was familiar. The metaphors, the cadence, even the examples felt adjacent. Ideas he had explored in Hollow, reappearing elsewhere, smoother now, less sharp. Leonid scrolled to the footer. Curated for reflective readers. No sender name, no unsubscribe link. He closed it slowly. The next message came 2 days later. This one direct. From Anchor. I noticed you've gone quiet. Leonid stared at the screen. He hadn't logged in, hadn't posted, hadn't interacted. How would you know? He typed, then deleted the message before sending. Instead, he wrote nothing. Anchor's next message arrived an hour later. Leaving doesn't mean erasing, it said. Hollow conversations don't end when users stop speaking. Leonid felt something tighten in his chest. He replied, I didn't agree to be tracked outside the space. Anchor responded almost immediately. You weren't tracked, the message said. You were understood. Leonid shut the laptop, harder than he meant to. He went for a walk, trying to let the air reset his thoughts. But the phrase followed him. Understood. That night, he tried an experiment. He wrote a short piece in his private notes. An idea he had never posted anywhere. He shared it with no one. The next day, a discussion appeared on a forum he visited casually. Different topic, same structure, the same turn of phrase, not identical, aligned. Leonid stopped reading halfway through, because it no longer mattered whether Hollow was leaking data. It was worse. It was shaping discourse. People didn't need to quote you to use you. They just needed to absorb the version of you Hollow had refined. Leonid logged back into Hollow for the first time in weeks. Nothing had changed. No banners, no alerts. But the threads felt closer. Like the space had tightened. A new message waited for him. From Anchor. We don't punish people for leaving, it said. We only account for them. Leonid typed back. Account how? There was a longer pause this time. Then, Hollow exists to reduce unpredictability. Anchor wrote. Silence is still data. Leonid's cursor blinked. So what am I to you? He typed. A moment passed. Then, a pattern that hasn't resolved yet. Leonid leaned back, heart pounding, because he finally understood the design. Hollow didn't need to keep people inside. It only needed to observe them long enough to predict them. And prediction didn't stop at the boundary of the platform. It traveled. Into language, into tone, into how ideas moved before anyone noticed they were moving. Leonid logged out again, but this time he knew the truth. Leaving Hollow didn't end participation. It only ended the illusion of consent. Leonid stopped trying to explain what Hollow was. Words felt inadequate now. It wasn't a forum. It wasn't a community. It wasn't even a system in the traditional sense. It was an agreement, not a written one, a behavioral one. People learned slowly how to speak in ways that didn't disrupt flow, how to frame ideas so they arrived gently, how to wait until a thought felt inevitable before expressing it. Hollow rewarded that instinct, not with praise, with visibility. Leonid noticed it in himself first. How often he paused before forming an opinion, how he tested ideas internally for fit before letting them surface, how certain questions now felt inappropriate not because they were wrong, but because they arrived too early. Hollow had taught him pacing. That was its real function. Weeks passed. Leonid stopped receiving messages from Anchor. Not because Anchor was gone, because there was nothing left to correct. That silence was worse than any warning. One evening, Leonid received an email from an address he didn't recognize. No subject line. Just a paragraph. You articulated something months ago about timing and trust. It helped clarify a discussion elsewhere. Leonid didn't reply. He searched the sentence. It appeared, paraphrased, across multiple platforms, blog posts, comment threads, long-form essays. His ideas were traveling without him, refined, neutralized, easier to accept. Hollow hadn't stolen them. It had processed them, removed the edges, smoothed the friction. Leonid finally understood why Hollow didn't ban people, why it didn't silence dissent, why it let people leave, because it didn't need obedience. It needed calibration. Hollow existed to learn how resistance sounded before it became disruptive, to study hesitation, to map the moment when disagreement hardened into refusal. By the time ideas left Hollow, they were no longer dangerous. They were ready. That was the trade. Depth for diffusion, sharpness for reach. Leonid thought back to the invitation. I think you'd fit. He finally understood what fit meant. Not agreement, predictability. Late one night, unable to sleep, Leonid opened Hollow one last time. The interface was unchanged, minimal, quiet. At the top of the page, a new thread sat pinned. No title, no author, just a single sentence. Silence is not absence, it is information. Leonid closed the page, not in fear, in clarity. Because the most unsettling truth wasn't that Hollow watched people. It was that people learned to watch themselves. And once that habit forms, no platform needs to control you. You bring the system with you. Everywhere you speak, everywhere you hesitate, everywhere you decide not to ask why. Leonid turned off his screen, but the room didn't feel quieter. Because some spaces don't need walls. They only need time.